Au moment où je m'exprime, des attaques terroristes d'une ampleur sans précédent sont en cours dans l'agglomération parisienne.
Hello and thanks for joining us here on France 24 for France in Focus. During these past 2 years, France has come under attack by terrorists like never before. Amongst the most high-profile of those attacks, the Charlie Hebdo attacks, the Nice attacks, and also here in Paris, this time a year ago, on the 13th of November, this city was under attack. 130 people lost their lives, 90 of them here at the Bataclan concert hall. After evading police capture for 4 months, the only surviving suspect from those attacks is now in a French prison. Let's get the latest on the investigation.
To the bursts of gunfire and several explosions, 3 commando units, 9 attackers all in all shed blood on the streets of Paris and Saint-Denis. That's 9 men plus Salah Abdeslam, whose specific role remains unclear even today. So far, exercising his right to silence, he's refused to cooperate with French investigators. Frustrated, his lawyers have now quit.
He doesn't talk too much. To defend someone, they need to speak. He had more to say about what he didn't do, rather than what he actually did. The investigation is thorough and will go ahead without his cooperation. Perhaps others will come to do his legal work, but that's not the case for us. We pulled out.
7 others, also under investigation, are currently behind bars. It's a probe that's also linked to attacks in Brussels on March 22nd, revealing a terror network that spans across both European cities. Meanwhile, Belgian investigators have found a file on a laptop marked November 13th, containing sub-files. The first on the list is Group Omar, the nickname of Abdelhamid Abaoud, who was once assumed the mastermind of the attacks. Then comes the French group, French like the 3 killers of the Bataclan concert hall. That's followed by the Iraqi group, Iraqi like the 3 suicide killers from Stade de France, and then Group Schiphol, the airport in Amsterdam. And finally, Group Metro. The last 2 groups are still under investigation and several questions remain. How are they linked to the Belgian operations? Were other attacks planned? And indeed, were other assailants involved? 2 men detained in a refugee shelter in Austria in December have since confessed to planning further attacks in Paris. They say Abu Ahmed entrusted them with a mission from Syria.
Oussama Attar, whose nom de guerre is Abu Ahmed, has appeared in the probe several times. He is the cousin of the Al-Bakraoui brothers, who committed the atrocities in Brussels. His younger brother has also been detained. At the time of the arrest, he was carrying keys to a hideout in the Belgian capital.
So is Oussama Attar, also known as Abu Ahmed, the real brain behind the Paris and Brussels attacks? In May, the head of the DGSE, France's equivalent to the CIA and MI5, told the parliamentary committee that he knew who was responsible, but disclosed no further details.
Well, we're joined now by one man who was inside the Bataclan when the jihadists struck. He was enjoying the rock concert there, and he managed to escape. Well, he spent the last 12 months trying to come to terms with what happened to him. He is a graphic designer, and he's written this book, Mon Bataclan, which describes what happened to him in cartoon form. His name is Fred de Wilde, and he joins me now. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Fred, you've asked us not to show your face. First of all, can I just ask you why that is?
It's to protect my private life. It's quite simple. I have a wife, children, and I don't want to be in the public eye. I think my work is more important than my face.
How much do you actually remember in detail about what happened to you on the 13th of November?
I remember everything. Now I've done the book, what I remember best are the things I've drawn. But there are lots of other things that I didn't draw, and that I don't want to draw, and that I still remember now.
Tell us a little bit about your book and how you've gone about telling your story through these cartoons.
The first image that came to mind was the last picture in the book, me walking up Boulevard Beaumarchais. That was the moment of the evening that was, for me, the strangest. It was absolutely terrible, and I was all alone. I was going to find my wife and father, who were waiting in a car nearby. I didn't know exactly where they were. I didn't know exactly where I was. I walked for half an hour like that, all on my own, covered in blood. I was completely terrified, like a child naked in the middle of the night. But this image, it also brought me hope, as I knew I'd see my wife and father. But I needed to tell a story of what happened before, and I managed that by having different ideas. I managed to reconstruct that night and tell myself that was what happened.
In this book, you've represented the killers, the jihadists, as being skeletons, and you haven't given them normal human form. Why was that? What were you trying to represent there?
I represented them as skeletons, so they were far removed from humanity. For me, someone who kills people like that is no longer part of humanity.
Did you actually see their faces? Would you be able to draw their faces from memory, or would that be something that you simply couldn't or wouldn't want to do?
No, I saw them, but I wouldn't be able to draw them as they had such normal faces. There was nothing special about them. I didn't recognize them in photos later on. They were just people, like you and me.
How are you feeling right now with this anniversary of 1 year upon us? What does it make you feel looking back on those 12 months?
It's really strange because a year's gone by since it happened. You feel like time has passed, but then you feel like you've just escaped from the Bataclan. When I finished the book, I was convinced the attack happened years ago. Now I think, oh, it's only been a year. It's really difficult to get your head around. It's very confusing.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Fred de Wild. Thank you for sharing that with us, Bataclan survivor and author of this book, Mon Bataclan. Thank you again.
Merci.
Well, as well as the 400 people who were physically injured during the night of the 13th of November, many others bear psychological scars. Well, we're going to take a look now at one approach which helps victims come to terms with such deeply shocking events.
They've been dubbed Generation Bataclan. These are some of the 3,000 survivors of terror attacks that ripped through Paris on the night of November 13th. A year on, some 600 people who escaped death are still grappling with post-traumatic stress disorder. On the night of the onslaught, emergency psychological support units were set up in the 11th arrondissement of the city, and Dr. Ducrot was first on the scene.
They were watching as guns were reloaded, watching as others died around them. They saw their own blood. This is quite an experience.
By his side, Alain Brunet, a psychiatric professor from McGill University, who's proposed a new treatment for psychological trauma. And the benefits appear to be longer lasting, more so than conventional therapy or antidepressants.
When a trauma occurs, the emotions remain as vivid as day one. And that's the problem. People say, I feel like it happened yesterday.
Here, the professor is training staff at a hospital in Marne-la-Vallée. Once a week, for 6 weeks, he revives the traumatic experience. But here's the twist. An hour before reading the memory, the patient takes propranolol. The beta blocker is often used to treat chest pain, high blood pressure or migraines. But in this case, it reduces the strength of long-lasting traumatic memories. It's a technique that's currently being used across 16 centres in France, one that's already getting the thumbs up from professionals in the industry.
I was struck by 2 young people who were at the Bataclan. They were deeply affected by this event and were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after some months. Both have agreed to pursue this treatment and both have dramatically improved. They say they've really benefited from this treatment.
To test the strength of the treatment, some 400 patients are being sought for the study. And today, Brunet is in search of victims in Nice, where the July attack left the French Riviera town in both grief and shock.
For the loved ones of the 235 people who've lost their lives during these most recent terrorist attacks on French soil, the sense of loss has been unbearable. We're going to take you now to meet some of them to see how they're coping.
It's the first time the entire Boissineau family travels to Paris together.
Mom, don't cry, or we're all going to cry.
A family communion to remember Chloe, who died in front of this bar during the November 13th terror attacks.
Sit here where she sat.
Chloe's grandmother is discovering the scene of the shooting. Her mother, Elizabeth, finds comfort in coming back here. She says reliving her daughter's last moments helps her alleviate the pain.
I miss her tremendously. It's been a year. It feels like a really long time.
Chloe was 25 years old. She had moved to Paris 7 years earlier and lived in the 10th district. The Carillon bar was her favorite spot to hang out. Now, when family members of the victims come here, Hassan Kamash, the manager, welcomes them with compassion.
At first, we cry together, then we have a drink and we move on.
Is that what you did with Elizabeth?
We'll ask her.
Yes, he offered me a beer.
On November 13th, 15 people were shot dead on the terrace of this restaurant. Chloe was sitting at a table with friends. She's the only one who died in the group. Back home, her mother has placed a picture of her in the living room with a candle and flowers. Chloe had a twin sister and 4 other siblings. Her mother says she draws her strength from her family and from little signs of Chloe that she sees everywhere around her.
It's always a nice moment when I'm here with her and hear the church bells. That helps me carry on. Of course, I'm sad and I always want to cry. Because, well, when you lose a child, it's like half of your heart is instantly ripped out of you. So I take every little sign I get from her and I keep them to myself.
Do you come here often?
Every day, every 2 days.
Perhaps a sign, a bell ringing, has brought light to her face.
Well, France remains under a state of emergency, and soldiers patrolling train stations, airports and other potential targets have become a common sight. Well, 30 kilometres down the French Riviera from Nice is the city of Cannes, known the world over for its film festival. Well, there too, security has become a top priority and the authorities are taking no chances.
A picture-perfect day in Cannes, but it's no holiday for the Israeli army's former counter-terrorism expert.
Level of the pier?
Yes, they are not very strong. I don't think it can block a car, for example.
Along with the head of the city's police department, Yuval Kimi is looking for weak points in the port's security.
It's difficult to secure because there is always somebody entering or going out.
Paid by the city of Cannes, the Israeli Homeland Security consultant presents his findings.
The port sees some different areas like the connection to the Palais de Festival.
But he refuses to reveal the exact locations in front of the camera.
Can you tell me just on this map, on this photo?
If I say that on the camera, then somebody listens, he says, thank you very much for telling me where to do the next attack.
Cannes' famous harbour is the last vulnerable landmark to be protected in the city. Around 500 cameras are installed in the centre, the highest concentration of video surveillance in France. Number one priority has been given to locations where children tend to be: schools, nurseries and public squares. With its world-renowned film festival and tens of thousands of tourists, Cannes officials are preparing for the worst-case scenario. Initiatives include this anti-terrorism seminar, designed to teach public sector workers how to spot the signs of a radicalized individual.
Une maman qui vient à l'école et qui vous dit qu'elle ne comprend pas pourquoi
A mother who comes to your school who tells you she does not understand why you don't serve halal meals. She's overstepping the rules of secularism. That doesn't mean she's going to be radicalized or become a notorious jihadist. We need to make that clear. We're just saying that this is the kind of partisan position which marks the beginning of a split from society.
Qui marque le début d'une mise en rupture avec la société.
Some employees have already written it off as too difficult to implement, but others are emboldened by the initiative and say they'll act differently in similar situations.
A dad that doesn't want to talk to me because I'm a woman, well, in that case, I'd flag it up.
The city council has also galvanized ordinary civilians. This Cannes Local is part of the Vigilant Citizens Task Force. Every morning and evening, the 60-year-old patrols this school. His job is to report anyone who looks suspicious or out of place. And it seems to have the approval of parents.
I prefer to have this man around as opposed to 3 army officers, which is sometimes a bit frightening for the children.
I guess it's something. It might not achieve anything until the day that it does. Who knows?
Cannes City Council is taking no chances. It spent €5 million to fight terrorism.
Well, that's it for this week's edition of France in Focus. Thank you for watching. See you again soon here on France 24.